Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we finished up the Silurians. What was that one about?
Well, the Silurians are these sort of reptilian people left over from prehistoric times. The Doctor actually was trying to negotiate with them to see if it was possible for the humans and the Silurians to live together, but the underling, the second in command of the Silurians, murders their leader and tries to start a war, and that gets shut down. I can't remember exactly what they did to prevent that. Oh, they cure for whatever the disease that they were spreading out, a pandemic.
Right.
And then the Silurians are chased back into their place, and the Doctor is trying to, again, make sure that they're safe. But the last shot shows the whole place being blown up.
Yes.
And we didn't know whether they were being killed or just being, walled up inside so that they couldn't get out.
Yeah. Because the Doctor, they were going back into hibernation, and the Doctor just wanted to make sure they were secure, but the Brigadier wanted to seal them off completely. But, again, we aren't sure if that actually sealed them off, if it seemed like his intention was more to seal them away than kill them.
Yeah.
So, but this has definitely caused a great deal of tension between the Doctor and the Brigadier. So, we'll have to see if that plays out in this episode at all. So, I have no idea.
Rather interesting title, The Ambassadors of Death.
Yes. This is another 7-part episode. So, once again, we'll be watching the first 4 parts today and the next 3 next week. So, yeah. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then we might as well jump right into this episode of Doctor Who Classic. Here we go.
No contact yet.
There's been no contact for 7 months.
How do we know they're still alive?
We took off from Mars manually. They must have been alive then.
Chill out with the beeping.
Took off from Mars.
It's so loud. It's at that moment I just realized we didn't have a title yet.
But when all hope was gone, radio astronomers at Cambridge reported that Mars Probe 7 had blasted off and was heading back to Earth.
So there are people on Mars. Look at the inside of the TARDIS.
It's redecorated.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
A lot. It's got stained glass window and stuff.
That's supposed to do.
Well, it could send you into the future if it starts working again. Particularly if you're standing there.
Come on now, Doctor.
Liz!
Duh.
Good grief.
Good job.
But only about 15 seconds.
But I haven't been anywhere. You vanished.
No, you vanished first. I only seem to have vanished because you went into the future, and I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No, the TARDIS has seen better days.
Oh, well, I suppose he's got to do something to occupy his mind now that he's blown up the Silurians.
You
Yep,
can
yep,
see
he's
from the
still
radar
mad about that.
Now, these do look like early 70s spacecraft. The lunar lander and the Apollo spacecraft.
It's a good thing we brought a band with us to space.
I have linked up.
Well done, Charlie.
Releasing first clamp.
Oh, nice filming it upside down so that it looks like
First
he's
clamp away.
weightless.
Well,
Second clamp.
That looked like the
Do you read me?
NORAD control center in Colorado.
Still holding the same position.
Yes.
Now then, I shall need multi-copies of that recording, unlimited computer time, and somewhere to work. Miss Shaw, I shall need your help.
How did you know that sound was going to be repeated?
By exercising my intelligence.
no.
Since we didn't reply, the message would obviously be repeated. Now we've got to break down that code and answer them.
Answer who?
The man's a fool. How can I possibly tell who the message is from until I know what it says?
One theory is that it may be some kind of distress signal. As it is now some hours since the last signal from the capsules, it's difficult to see what can be done, short of sending up another
Very
recovery.
much the tradition of the Greek chorus in ancient plays.
Well,
That's a stack.
And
And
Algonquin.
I have to say, for a scientist, Liz is wearing an outfit that a woman scientist probably would never be caught dead in.
no.
But that's not accurate enough. We must pinpoint the exact location.
Well, we've got every national radio service standing by with monitors. Wherever that signal's coming from, we'll find it.
Do you want to bet that it's in England?
Until 3 months from now.
From where? Nancy. Oui.
Something coming through.
Oui.
It's in France.
Merci.
I guess.
France.
I guess, are we in France?
I don't know.
Or is there just a lot of French people here?
Yes. London.
Nope.
Got the American.
Nope.
Check.
What's the exact location?
An abandoned warehouse, 7 miles from here.
Oh no, so we're in London. I mean, I guess I should have figured.
There are plenty of locations that could be faked by London.
Yeah.
Okay, the incidental music is a little unusual.
Yeah.
This is kind of 60s hippies Renaissance fair stuff.
Yeah. For the military.
That's enough.
This looks like the exact same place we fought the Autons. And also the Cybermen. Oh no, Bill. Why does everyone hold their gun really low?
I say, I haven't seen any of the bad guys being shut down yet.
Nah. Good job. Oh, there we go. I'm not sure what he tried to accomplish.
There's another one. Doesn't say much for units' fighting capabilities here.
Yeah.
Getting taken down by a bunch of thugs.
I told you to give the doctor full cooperation. See that he gets it? Yes, Controleur. Satisfied?
That was crazy.
Let's see what he's got to say for himself this time.
Oh no, he's evil.
He's in on it.
I mean, I was kind of thinking, like, oh, maybe would it be interesting if they were involved with it, but maybe not all of them, but at least Dr. Beardman, he's in on it. Okay, so, I mean, we're kind of calling Ice Warriors, but it's entirely possible there's something new, such as Ambassadors of Death. But do we want to stick on our prediction of Ice Warriors?
This does not seem... Because this is now back in 70, and the last time we saw the Ice Warriors was in the future, after the TMAT thing.
Yeah.
And they didn't talk about a previous one. I'm going to have to go with this has got to be somebody else.
Yeah. The only thing we really have about this related to the Ice Warriors is it's something to do with Mars, because it's the Mars probe, and the Doctor has heard that sound before.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's really nothing else that connects it to the Ice Warriors.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, you know, they do bring up the Silurians and everything, but it really didn't stick. I mean, I guess they have to get to work, so no use in holding a grudge.
Crisis of the week.
Yeah, so man, it was really weird seeing the inside of the TARDIS and it being so different. Like, he's got columns and, like, it kind of looked like on one of the walls he almost had curtains, so...
He also had a console TV, which was very popular. My parents had one like that.
Yeah.
And behind it, there seemed to be, you know, what we would call, you know, knick-knack or tchotchkes, which I don't recall either of the other two doctors having.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's entirely...
Troughton had a trunk or something. When he first regenerated, he went through the trunk going, oh, here's my thing from, you know, the Tibetan monastery or whatever. But, yeah, none of that stuff seems to have any relationship to anything we've seen before.
Yeah. I mean, the most we've seen... I feel like the first Doctor's era, we saw the TARDIS the most. And there would be, like, occasional things, like, you know, something will be, like, on a pedestal, like, or he'll just have a rocking chair or something, or some sort of science thing, or he'll have, like, a lab, I think.
When they were on the Web Planet, he had some machine that somebody had to go back in and pull outside, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess because it's really been a while. Like, we've seen the inside of the TARDIS, but we haven't really stayed there for a while. Yeah. But even still, like, he doesn't have the round things anymore on the walls. Yeah. So, and it's also strange because I think in the Three Doctors, they do go back into the TARDIS, and it pretty much looks exactly the same as it should. So, I don't know. That was strange. Also, I suppose it's entirely possible that he pulled the TARDIS console out of the TARDIS and into another room at Unit, but that seems very weird to do that, so...
I would think, based on just visuals, that the TARDIS console is too big to get out even the double doors.
Yeah, I mean... I'm sure there's some sort of thing in Doctor Who lore, like the doors can just expand or something, but yeah, that's true. And how did he get it out himself?
Yeah, like remember the fireplace in the Santa Claus?
Yeah, it just sort of expands. So, and yeah, and also, if that's Liz's first time on the TARDIS, nothing really special. She just walks in, it's just a thing to do. So, yeah. And you're right about her outfit. That seemed very strange for her.
Now, they again, the first two serials, the Silurians and the Spearhead from Space, they set her up as being a very no-nonsense, scientific kind of woman. That seems like they're trying to bring her back down to a Zoe or Vicky kind of, early 70s, the white go-go boots and the short mini skirt. It doesn't... she's up until this point had her hair pulled back mostly, and now it's kind of down. So somebody's done something to her look.
Yeah, it honestly looks like one of Zoe's leftover outfits. Which, I mean, it's interesting because Zoe was also a sciencey smart girl, but her outfits were all over the place. Yeah. So yeah, it was very strange. It's a different
part
take.
of that too. Zoe had to pick her wardrobe from the TARDIS, whereas Liz has her own wardrobe. So maybe she's a scientist by day and go-go girl by night. It's a shock.
Didn't have a chance to change before they went to wherever this place is.
Space control, just somewhere in the mountains.
In the mountains by London. Are there mountains by London?
Not that I remember. No, there are mountains off to the west, but not within
7 miles.
Yeah, well, that was the warehouse, though. But
yeah, well, it's still 7 miles within.
Yeah, from that. So.
Yeah, and that's in London. So
yeah, that's all the. If I recall correctly, it's the coastal plain. That's East Anglia. It's not very high above sea level. The mountains are out in Wales and especially up in the north, up in Scotland and Northumberland, places like that. So. Just for a moment, the outline of that thing looks like Darth Vader's helmet.
Yeah, you're right. It did kind of look like that with the...
Since you insist.
This is no time for conjuring tricks. Put up your hands. Up!
What even happened there?
Oh, here it is.
You didn't send it into the future, did you?
No. No, that was simply transmigration of object. There's a great deal of difference between that and pure science,
Darling, what about decoding this tape?
Okay.
That's just a thing he can do?
Analog digital converter.
Yes.
Okay, A, why has he never done that before? And B, why will he never do that again?
Have you decided to talk yet? Why didn't you shoot me when you had the chance?
This guy looks like an older version of Pedro Pascal.
The wipers don't go at the same time.
No.
If there are 3 men inside that capsule, that's going to be very tight.
No.
I gotta say, the budget for the rental of these large machines here would have been pretty high. Again, a little too Renaissance fair on that music.
No. That was a crazy mask.
They seem kind of unusual. Not an oxygen mask or anything.
Maybe they're the ambassadors of death. Oh, look at this brave man. Oh. Well, you tried. Well, this car gets goofier with every passing moment.
Don't worry. It'll switch itself off.
He magnetized them. I didn't even think about the fact that he would install so many weird things on that car.
Is that all you've got to say, Sir James?
Whoever you are.
Sweep it all under the carpet.
Minister for science or technology or space or
I
whatever.
should be most
I guess.
grateful, Brigadier. Thank you, gentlemen.
Maybe he's Master's replacement, since he died. Oh no, is he evil
All
too?
right. Won't you sit down?
Recovery 7. Do you read me?
Who isn't in on it at this point?
Yeah, seriously.
Well, obviously
Recovery
Cornish isn't.
7.
Yeah.
How many beans make 5?
Hello, Space Control. This is Recovery 7. Will you clear us for re-entry?
And
We're
Leiden.
not cleared for re-entry.
Right, cut it open.
Oh, the mystery keeps growing. It was at this moment I also realized we're only 2 episodes in. We've still got a lot more. Like, I feel like we've watched 4 episodes already.
Well, that one certainly had a lot more action in it. I mean, obviously with the outdoor scenery and everything. The first one seemed a little padded, but again, I understand they're trying to set up all of the exposition.
Yeah.
And, of course, the obnoxious reporting narrator didn't help.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting sort of frame... Hold on. Okay. I was misspelling because I was talking. What was it? It's an interesting sort of framing device of having the reporter there. And, yeah, it's like when something is like, oh, something's happened, and it cuts to him, and it's like, this thing has happened. And then you just sort of move on. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, it kind of works, but, yeah, it's a tad strange, I suppose. Yeah. And yeah, who isn't in on this? Honestly. So
seriously, it seems like Cornish is about the only one who isn't, and probably the young woman who was there with him trying to get the capsule down. But
yeah,
Teltalian and his assistant Dobson are in on it, and apparently, whatever the whole secret organization is, the guy with the red carnation in his lapel, and the minister are all in on it.
Yeah. So, you know, and when they did say, it's like, oh, I think we might be getting something, there was like a part of me at the back of my mind, I was like, oh, what if this is like the Daleks? and then I thought, no, I don't think we get them for quite a while still. I think they're out for a little while. But that would have been really interesting if just the Daleks started talking over that. But probably for the best it's not the Daleks, because there's still that continuing mystery of, all right, what's wrong with these guys? Why can't they just open it? So
Darth Vader's helmet.
Well,
not Darth Vader.
Nah.
Although it looks a little like the Emperor Palpatine.
Well, now I want to hear a good John Pertwee impressionist reading Darth Vader's lines.
What is the capital of Australia?
We are not cleared for re-entry.
Canberra?
How many beans make 5?
Hello, Space Control. This is Recovery 7.
I think Canberra is the capital of Australia.
Maybe.
We're not cleared for...
Now that you mention that, I don't really know any places in Australia. It's either the Outback or I know of Perth. That's about it.
Adelaide, Sydney, of course, the biggest city.
Oh yeah, in Sydney.
What?
Oh, good jump.
You mean you're going to tell us the truth?
No. Oh. But I'm going to introduce you to the man who can.
Can we talk about Liz's hat for a sec? Man, he kept trying though. Oh, jeez. You know what? They died heroes.
Yeah, don't understand driving with the top down through the English rain.
I mean, why do they have any convertibles in England?
Well, it is sunny sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think it's sunny enough to justify a convertible. Oh, it's really fun, actually. Just sort of hopping around in gravel.
Trying to cover up their bodies.
Yeah.
And of course, the people operating the mill here don't notice a random laundry truck dropping off a couple of dead bodies.
Either that, or they just don't care.
Oh, very James Bond.
Whoa. That was awesome. Look, lock the door.
Lock the door.
It's all right.
This was your own fault.
I must have all stages in go condition as soon as possible, so get on with it. In trouble? Everything's taking just a little bit longer than it should.
I know they have weird phones, but why is the dial on the bottom of it specifically?
That was the thing of the time. If I recall correctly, the button in the middle of it is what hung it up, so that as soon as you picked it up, you got the dial tone. That looks like a Ford Maverick.
And she needs to be looking around the dash, see if there's like a missile she can fire from the back. Turn around and go the other way. Oop, I'll throw him over. Whoop, that cliffhanger. Alright.
Bridge hanger.
Alrighty, and that's part 3.
Well, again, other than the somewhat expository first episode, this has been nothing but like non-stop action.
Well, man, they had a car chase. We never get that. Maybe not the greatest car chase of all time, but it's their first time.
Yeah, I mean, this is fine, but Ford Maverick is like one of the worst cars of all time. But, I mean, they had to have something that was small that would, not obviously overpower little Bessie there, so.
I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like, okay, how fast is Bessie? How much horsepower does it have? So I was thinking, well, maybe they did get a horrible car because it has to match however fast Bessie can go. Yeah. So,
now he supposedly made, modifications, alterations to it, but in real life, that was still a very, very old car.
Right. So, man, I'm still very curious what the ambassadors of death are.
Yes, we don't seem to have. I mean, unless they're the astronauts.
Maybe this alien species is called Death, and they are the ambassadors of this species. And they... It's a stretch.
Seems a bit flimsy. But yeah, I mean, what do we know? I mean, so far...
We don't know anything else other than it's just 3 guys, they're not human, they thrive on radiation. So...
Now, when Regan brought in the isotopes, I'm assuming he brought them in from somewhere.
Yeah.
And
other guy.
The other guy. The
remember.
near scientist, the almost scientist. You're almost a scientist, aren't you? You can't come by isotopes that quickly.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like on The Big Bang Theory, when young Sheldon Cooper wanted to buy some, yellow cake uranium, realizing that's not something that you can buy on the open market. You don't go down to the local nuclear fission shop and say, I'll take some yellow cake.
Oh, isn't that the plot of Back to the Future?
Yeah.
That Doc Brown had to go get it from the Libyans?
Yeah.
And then they were pissed at him? So, yeah, I'm curious. I mean, they're this evil group or whatever that is kind of like, there's some, like, problems within the ranks. Like, it seemed like that general didn't really know that was going to happen, or that is part of their plan just to keep UNIT off their tail.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now, I did get the impression that Sir James, whoever, he's the minister of something, maybe minister of the space agency, but yeah, I think they had incorporated Carrington in there to throw everybody off, to make it look legit when he wasn't in on it at all, really.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, it could be like, was it Corvish, the main guy at the space launch?
Cornish, yeah.
Cornish, yeah. He's not in on it, so.
Somebody, one of the comments, either on the Silurians or Spearhead, said this is the era of the James Bond Doctor.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm seeing way more of that here than in the first two.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, even just kind of down to how the Doctor presents himself and the wardrobe and everything, like, he's very Bond.
I'm trying to think if by 1970, Sean Connery had given up the role and Roger Moore had taken over yet, because that would make a perfect sense, because Roger Moore is very tall, got the, he doesn't have the bouffant hair like Pertwee does, but again, very suave, very debonair, good looking, although Pertwee seems a little bit older there.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're stuck on Earth, limited by whatever you can do, why not make him a James Bond? I mean, it's a very popular genre.
Yeah. Remind me after we watch part 4. Someone actually gave me like a list of which episodes were colorized and which episodes are the original color. So I'm thinking this one might be another sort of colorized episode. Like, there's the occasional shot where like Pertwee's hair is almost a different color. So
I haven't really noticed it.
Yeah. So
interesting. She can take them on, but they outwitted the unit soldiers.
I can come and go as I please. But I haven't got anywhere to go.
Go to a hairstylist.
A respected son.
Oh, it's like a Peugeot or a Renault. Why do I suspect he was following? That's a BMW, by the way. No, it's a Mercedes, sorry.
I tell you, nobody helped me.
I'll take the rocket up for you myself.
Thank you, Doctor, but I don't think you realize just what's necessary.
My dear man, I've spent more time in space than any astronaut on your staff.
No.
Not, I'll admit, in the rather primitive contraptions that you use, but I'll manage.
And they took a rocket up to
I can
the
also
moon.
withstand
That was in the future.
considerable G-force
That's true.
than most people.
I think I've got it now.
Well, he's dead.
I'll tell you, must have thought that he had plenty of time to get away, when in fact this bomb was set to go off instantaneously.
So whoever gave it to him wanted to get rid of both of you.
Yes. Tartalium was a weak link,
This wasn't a very good way of taking out the Doctor. If he was, 2 feet away at any point, he wouldn't have died. Oh wait, he has a bandage on his face.
I guess Tatalian's body absorbed most of the explosion.
Brigadier, look at this.
I guess.
This doctor fellow must have 9 lives. Tonight?
Well,
It's
13, but they haven't established that yet.
I must.
And he's already used 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Fan theory says he's used 3.
Looks like he's combed his hair.
Well, yeah. He looks very familiar. I can't place why, though.
Well, that's a revolting development. Looked like it was an oar.
Well, when you go on break. Alrighty. I'll let this play for a sec.
William Dysart. Lennox. The little scientist. Yeah, that's a name we've seen before. He's played something else for us in something previously.
All right. Well,
because I remember was wondering if he was related to Richard Dysart, who was an American actor, or at least played in a lot of American films and things like that, so they may be related.
Well, that's the first 4 parts of the Ambassadors of Death.
And we still don't know who they are.
Whatever they are. So,
we do know that they're aliens. We do know that they thrive on radiation, and apparently they use some sort of defibrillating device to kill people outright.
I mean, I don't even think it's a device. I think they just have some sort of radiation power.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that was kind of cool when he touched the pike there at the gate, and it traveled along it and zapped the guy.
Yeah, that was interesting. So, oh yeah, I was going to look up. Put that out of the way for a sec. I was going to look up if these episodes were colorized or not. So, we'll talk while I do that. So, this will just take a moment. Well, the first thing on the notes is Mars Probe 7, which was interesting. Again, I guess I don't remember if it was specifically that they...
Picture of the Hagia Sophia?
No, that's from... Oh, gosh. No, that was from The Legend of Korra.
Oh.
But it does... I suppose it could look like that. So.
Yeah, very, very similar. Got the dome and the minarets and everything.
No. Anyway. So, yeah, I guess... I mean, I think they did say, though, that they were on the surface of Mars. So...
Now, and again, if this is supposed to be even just a few years more, like the mid-70s or even late 70s, we had just barely got to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, by 1970, maybe Apollo 12 had landed and come back. Of course, we haven't had the disaster with Apollo 13 yet. I think that was a little bit later. But assuming that this is Mars Probe 7...
Yeah.
Now, again, the first Apollo to land on the moon was Apollo 11. The first one to actually reach the moon and circle it and bring the men back was like Apollo 8. But still, this is assuming that we got past the moon and off to Mars within a span of a decade. And that seems a bit ambitious.
The only thing I could think is, because you're right, it's not the first lunar probe that lands on the moon. It could be, I think they said, they were taking pictures of the surface of Mars, so it could have just been orbiting Mars. Yeah. So, of course, I'm curious how fast the Doctor's going to get there, So...
Well, again, it's about a 2.5 or 3 day journey to the moon. It's an 18-month journey to Mars.
Yeah,
but that depends on where the capsule is. Remember, because they were coming back. So if the capsule's in orbit around Earth, getting to it would be relatively easy.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay. For the color, so Spearhead from space, all completely colored, all good, because that was original 16mm color film.
Yeah, remember we've been seeing that somebody was at the BBC was on strike, and so they literally had to do it all completely on location.
Yeah,
and we talked about that. We said it looks like they weren't doing sets, or if they were doing sets, they were really, really good.
Yeah, and it also makes sense that lab that we saw with the Doctor where the TARDIS was, we haven't seen that lab again, so maybe they aren't using that wherever that was.
But when we saw the Three Doctors, wasn't that the set? Because it did look vaguely familiar.
It did. It could have been like maybe sort of dressed up a bit, but I don't know. I'm not sure if that was the same thing. The Silurians, complete color restoration, which is interesting because I think I remarked that on one of the episodes, like, this looks more colorized than the others, but all 7 of those. Ambassadors of Death is where it gets a bit interesting. Episode 1 is... Okay.
You could blow that up. Control plus.
No, what that's doing is enhancing Twitter, but not the actual image.
Oh, sorry.
So, okay, it looks like original 2-inch PAL color master tape. for episode 1. I guess that means I guess that would be similar to the 16mm film for Spearhead from Space. So episode 1 of this, all completely legit. However, these 3 episodes that we have been watching, chroma dot color recovery, which is different from color restoration. So I guess it's still the colors, but they recovered I'm not sure how that works. So, and then for the next one, which we'll get more into when we get to Inferno and everything, says reverse standards conversion. I don't know what that means. Maybe someone can explain all of these, but anywho. So yeah, at least the last 3 episodes have been color restorations to some degree, or recovery, I guess. So, just an interesting thing there.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't really notice.
Yeah, I mean, it's only occasionally that I kind of notice like a difference in film quality, almost. But yeah, other than that, like there was one point. It was when they were outside. I think it was just before they were gonna take away the probe that landed. Pertwee's hair looked way darker, which was interesting. It almost looked brown, which is weird because it's a very distinct white color for the most part. So I don't know, but maybe that was just the difference of like where he was. It just sort of made it all blend together. So let's see. The other thing I wrote down, the next thing, is the Doctor's quest to fix the TARDIS, which didn't go well, accidentally sending both him and Liz 15 seconds into the future. But I mean, just the TARDIS redesign of the interior was very striking.
Yeah.
So,
and no explanation. He didn't say, now that I've changed, I thought I'd update the interior. Just some little throwaway line.
Yeah. So it's that is very, very strange, especially because, I mean, you would think they would just still have that set on hand. Like, you don't have to really spend any money on that set. You've had the set for 7 years now, So just the fact that it was so different, there's like columns and stained glass and a TV and stuff, it just seemed very strange.
Yes, and not just a TV, that was a console TV.
Well, yeah, so
I think the first time I really saw one of those, I went off to college in 1969, and my parents must have bought that somewhere between my sophomore and junior year.
Let's see. We had the message and the reply, which is interesting. Again, it's kind of strange because I feel like we can't say too much about the aliens themselves because we don't know anything about them.
Yeah. All we know is that they're inside those spacesuits and they emit radiation and they respond to certain commands from the box.
Yeah, certain impulses, which I mean is sort of like the reply is, or the messages as well, although they said they were more like pictogram messages, like you can write them all out from the sounds, but you're supposed to just look at them, not exactly necessarily read them or understand that as its own language, I suppose. So that was very interesting, and it definitely seems more of the the focus is more on the humans that are using these aliens and trying to keep them alive and everything, which is interesting.
Yeah. And again, although this is called Ambassadors of Death, we assume that these 3 aliens are the ambassadors, but we don't know that for sure because here we are literally a month into this serial and we don't know. Now, one other minor thing, the costumes, the suits that the aliens are wearing are not at all like the American suits from this time. Those look like the Russian cosmonaut suits. So I'm hoping there's not a tie-in that the Russians are in on this, because remember, this is at the very height of the Cold War between the United States and NATO allies and the Russians.
Yeah. Was there No, none of them were Russian, I don't think. There was one guy, I think, who had, I guess, maybe more of a German accent than
couldn't really
anyone
tell
else.
what it was.
Yeah,
that was one of the scientists who was trying to keep them alive there at that warehouse, the first one.
Yeah, that's true.
And I couldn't tell if that was Russian or if that was German either. It was Eastern European.
Yeah.
One of those, another vague European accent.
Right. But for the most part, it's either been British or French.
Yeah.
Like, there's been a number of French accents in here as well. So, let's see. We had the warehouse fight, which also that sort of brings up that other soldier that they captured him. He didn't end up shooting the brigadier, and so they captured him. And I thought, okay, so they'll figure out a way. Maybe the doctor will do something and get the information out of him. And then they just sort of never cut back to that guy. And
well, they did establish that the doctor figured out that he was a military man.
Yeah.
But then once he figured that out, he knows that special ops soldiers like that are trained to give name, rank, and serial number and nothing else.
Yeah.
So that's when he said, we're not going to get anything else out of this guy because he's. I mean, unless you absolutely put him under torture, under some kind of duress, he's not going to break.
Yeah, and I guess that sort of leads into the general guy and Sir James.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had the fight at the warehouse where, just a number of unit soldiers just getting bodied. Like, maybe, what it might be is that they keep dying to aliens. So now we sort of have fresh bottom of the barrel recruits that can't stand up to just a couple blokes, So
yeah, just a couple of blokes.
Yeah, it might be something like that.
Well, again, we have to assume that these guys are specially trained agents or something like that. Not that they look like them at all.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, talk about the stormtroopers who can't shoot straight. Yeah. The thugs were picking off the unit guys, and it was only at the very end that we saw one or two of the other guys getting shot.
Mostly by the brigadier.
Yeah.
It was mainly the brigadier that was taking down the others. So it reminds me, there's this one show where it might be an anime. Yeah, it is. Where basically this sort of independent military group, they take on vampires and other mythical creatures and stuff, but they keep losing soldiers every time. Just a ton of soldiers die, so they end up hiring these sort of French mercenaries, and the joke is really, this is where we're going, the sort of bottom of the barrel. And it's well, we had to post our mortality rates when we were trying to hire more soldiers, and these were the only ones that applied. So maybe units, now if units already getting sort of bottom of the barrel soldiers, that does not bode well for the rest of the Pertwee era.
Now it kind of reminds me of that scene in Pulp Fiction where the guy comes out and he tries to shoot Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta, and he's bang, 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 and the two of them just standing there, the guy hit all around them and neither one of them is touched, and it's how did that happen? It's a miracle.
Yeah, there were a couple of times. I think there was one shot where it was just the brigadier against a wall, and then 3 shots happened around him, but nothing actually hit him. So
it's also kind of nostalgic here to watch the fact that in the 70s we still weren't to the point where you could actually show somebody with the squib and the blood.
Yeah.
Notice all these people die bloodlessly.
Yeah, if there's a shot, even the scientist too, he gets shot in the gut and he's just
point blank
oh
range.
No, and it just sort of falls down. It's well, yeah, he's dead. I mean, we can show that he's dead, but we can't show this growing red stain on his white coat. So
yeah. In fact, one of the if I recall correctly, right about this time, late 68, 69, 70, was one of the very first films where they allowed that. It was a Western. The director was Sam Peckinpah. It was called The Wild Bunch. And there is a shootout at the end of that between the Wild Bunch and a bunch of other bad guys. And this is, seriously, and in slow motion too. So, you'd see a guy get hit and just a huge explosion
Yeah.
and blood spattering everywhere. And again, like you say, they fall down a accumulating pool of blood.
Yeah.
And people just went crazy over that. Not crazy like, oh, we love that. I mean, this was people, oh, we can't have this kind of violence. This is going to upset our children, yada, yada, yada. And yet it's become the norm now.
Right, definitely. I mean, throw a PG-13 on it. It's fine.
Now, that's the other thing. Back then, we didn't have PG-13.
Yeah,
Wasn't
definitely.
Temple of Doom the first picture to have a PG-13?
It might have been, yeah, because I think, like... Was it? I think at least, like, Raiders is PG. So.
By 1970... If it had, well, yeah, it had to be because it was imposed about 68, I think. There were only 4 categories. G, general audiences. M, mature audiences, not recommended for anyone under 16 or 17. R, no one under 17 admitted. And then X, which was, basically reserved for porn.
Right. So, yeah, Temple of Doom being PG-13, that sounds about right. Yeah. So
too intense for young audiences.
Yeah. Now, the one upside to not having any bloody deaths is they don't have to pay for that. Which I imagine that's one of those things like, oh, good, we don't have to pay for blood. They just fall down and it's fine.
Yeah, not only don't have to pay for blood, you don't have to pay for the laundering to get out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So they don't have to pay extra money, and they're not going to get upset letters from parents. Yeah. So it's all good. Let's see. Oh, okay, so... I'm going to take a bet that this is never going to happen again in the entirety of Doctor Who. And I still don't know what he did, but the transmigration of objects is just something he did. This is a power he has, I guess, or... See, I kind of thought, like, maybe this is... You could almost say it's just some... Like, it's just a weirdly filmed magic trick. Because the Doctor, he does sort of have his magic tricks, and definitely later he does that a lot more. But, I mean, just the way they film that is, it's in Pertwee's hand, they cut, it's out of his hand, and then it just cuts back and it's in his hand again, to make it look like, oh, it just appears out of nowhere. But they don't explain what that is. And I know there's going to be a comment of someone being like, it doesn't matter. It's just a little thing that they added in. But if you're going to have this power, have this power,
But and Liz said, hey, did you manage to put it 15 seconds into the future? That would have been the perfect explanation. But no, to say, oh no, it's something completely different. It's like, no, that's incongruous. Right? It doesn't follow. It's non-continuity.
Yeah, like, he's never done anything like this before.
No.
And I'm gonna place money that he will never do anything like this again. So, yeah, I don't know. That was very... And that could have been the thing. If it was just like, oh, yes, well, for some reason my watch, or something on him, like, has been affected by the TARDIS, and so it's doing that too. It sends something 15 seconds into the future. He figured that out, and he used it to his advantage. Okay, and then you could even say, like, well, I don't think I'll be able to do that again, It's only worked because the TARDIS is acting up this one time. Yeah. So, then that could have worked. But otherwise, how did he do that? Why hasn't he done that? Why will he not do that again, Let's see. So I guess, the whole thing with having the capsule out there just in the field, I guess, the show has sort of had that sort of budget to have some sort of structure like that, before. I don't know why it's like 10 times more impressive to then put that on a truck and then drive that away. Like, I don't know why the truck is more impressive than the fact that they built this space capsule in the middle of a field.
Yeah. But there's something else, and we kind of mentioned this before. In the 4 episodes here, the 7s of the Silurians, and what do we have, 4 of the Spearhead, or how many was... All right, so we're looking at 15 episodes so far, so almost 4 months of stuff. Every time they've shown an outdoor shot, it's either been raining or overcast, cloudy, and foggy. Yeah. So, they couldn't find a single sunny day at any point?
I guess not. See, I remember... I I think it was in the first episode where you said, oh, yeah, well, yes, they can't travel through space and time and stuff, but, oh, well, maybe they'll go around, Europe, maybe they'll have some stuff in France or Germany and stuff like that. I remember one of the comments was like, oh, yeah, that would be interesting. But what about the south of England? How about we go there?
How about
all the time?
All the time, yes.
Yeah, so.
But, I mean, there's just, even... because somebody said that they shot part of the Himalayan thing, like in the mountains of Scotland or in Wales or something like that. So that's all they need to do. I mean, it doesn't have to be spectacular, but just to see the same muddy roads and the rain and the off in the heath, it's just, come on. Yeah.
Well, they even said too, like. Well, I mean, first off, it is just hilarious that, this is all being centered on London. It's like, of course it is. That's...
and we haven't really even seen London. I mean...
Yeah, it was the warehouse, but that was about it.
Yeah.
But then the whole thing of, yes, well, luckily the capsule is finally landing. Looks like it'll land in the south of England. Of course it will. Can't land too far off.
But, again, there were probably films of that time period of the Apollo capsules landing, probably some of the Russian Soyuz capsules landing, that sort of thing. I'm sure because they're using a lot of stock footage in some of these things, and it just landing it in South England, the southern part of England, is, I mean, nobody ever does that. I mean, it lands at the Atlantic, it lands in the Pacific, it lands in the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, we also had. So, the Doctor, he didn't magnetize the car. It was a force field, he said, that I guess just stuck them to the car, which was interesting. This is the sort of James Bond era of Doctor Who. That is very interesting, and it makes sense. All the weird things he would put on that car,
and the exploding suitcase. I mean, that's very much a James Bond sort of thing.
The exploding suitcase that, I mean, I guess it is that Tatalian,
or briefcase rather,
or
Tatalian,
that he took the majority of that blast, which is why the Doctor, I guess, only had a cut. Because otherwise, I mean, it's like, oh yes, put this down, and then 15 minutes later, hoping that the Doctor, doesn't walk out of the room for any reason.
Waiting for you, going, he's been gone, 11 minutes, I'll go see where he's got off to.
Or even just where he was in the corner of that room. Hopefully he won't do any of that, and it'll blow him up, but nope.
And again, there should have been bits and pieces of not the Doctor, but Dr. Tatalian.
I was wondering that. It's like, did they just clean up? Because there should... I mean,
there was a lot of smoke in that room.
The Doctor's suit should be ruined. Like, he should have red hair now. Like, it should be all sorts of gross stuff. So, let's see. The astronauts are still up there on Mars Probe 7, and we have these new, what we can only presume to be are the Ambassadors of Death. That title... I bet you they had a story, and then someone else came up with a title that was completely unrelated. Like, hey, what if we had something called, like, The Ambassadors of Death? And then whoever wrote this, David Whittaker, was like, I need a title, I'm taking that. And it's like, okay, guess we're just doing that. That'll sound good on the marketing. Like, tune in on Saturday for Doctor Who and The Ambassadors of Death. Whatever those are.
But again, we're a month into this. If we were watching, 1 half-hour episode each week, we're a month into this, and we still don't know who the ambassadors are or where they came from. Ambassadors from where?
Yeah, like, we presume Mars, but there's nothing to presume that. So, like, we only presume that because they went to Mars, but there's nothing to actually say they are from Mars. And I guess this is kind of like the Faceless Ones, I guess, where throughout that entire, like, up to the last episode, we're like, we don't know who these people are or what's happening. Like, it was just this strange, incredible mystery. So we kind of have that going on again. It's like, well, we have these guys in spacesuits. They exist off of radiation. Like, okay, what are they? I'll tell you in 3 weeks.
And the one or two kind of close-up shots of the faces behind the shields
Yeah.
don't really show us anything either.
Yeah, they definitely have hid the faces.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just don't know what they are. So let's see. Well, we did have a bit of a car chase when Liz was trying to escape in Bessie. So
I had a friend in college who drove a Maverick. Oh, God. I mean, seriously. Probably next to the Pinto and the Corvair, probably one of the worst cars ever built in the United States. The idea was they were trying to cash in on the popularity of the Mustang. All right, so they wanted a kind of smaller version of the Mustang, and the Mustang is really small. I mean, let's face it, the Mustang is really a two-seater. It had a back seat, but unless you were 2 feet tall, you couldn't have sat in it. So they're trying to make a compact car, so they make both the Pinto and the Maverick to basically be the cheaper versions of the Mustang. But although the Pinto was a decent car, other than the fact that it exploded if you bumped into it, the Maverick though was just a hunk of junk.
You've been talking about cars so much since we started Pertwee.
Well, it's because
because we're on Earth.
He fixates.
Yeah. We don't really we never really got that with Troughton because we were in space half the time, and the other half we were still really in space most of the time. So yeah, it's like just every so often, like just a scene will pop up, and you're like, oh, that car, why that car, or something like that. So
well, I mean, there was the Mercedes-Benz in this one, and a couple of what appeared to me to be either a Peugeot or a Renault. But again, I have that visceral reaction every time they show a Vauxhall, because I mean, the Vauxhall. I mean, seriously, it's a cracker box on wheels. Now we had it for all 3 years that we were in England. It never really gave us any trouble. But I mean, seriously, it's 4 wheels and a steering wheel, and that's pretty much all it does.
Have you ever
get you from one spot to the next?
Yeah. You ever heard of a show called Top Gear or The Grand Tour?
I've heard of it. I've heard of Top Gear. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been watching like some of their clips and stuff, and just every time you talk about these cars, I just hear that in my mind too. And they'll do. My favorite part of those shows are the specials that they do, where they will take 3 of what can only be described as the crappiest cars they could find, and they'll just drive somewhere. But the latest one, they were doing 1970s American cars going through Scotland, and they were trying to figure out, why didn't these catch on? And then they go through, it's like, these aren't holding up amazingly, and they're huge, like they don't fit on British roads. So it reminds me of that. Maybe you'd enjoy that.
Maybe I'll look into that.
Yeah, it's right up your alley too. It's 3 old men just griping the entire
griping about cars.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
On my Facebook page, I have an album that I started back when you were learning to drive. A picture of you sitting in the Jeep, and that just caught my imagination. I thought, well, I'll go back because I do have some pictures of the cars that I have driven in my life. But then I went back and said, I don't have a picture of the car that we drove in France. It was a Pontiac. Just this kind of old army green thing. So I, go on Google Images, and I've literally found images of every car that my family or I have ever owned, and so I put them all into that album there. And again, when I looked up the Vauxhall Victor, and I looked at the article, I mean, it literally starts out by saying the Vauxhall Victor is known as the ugliest car in Britain, and I went, okay. I mean, I can kind of see that, but it's just. We were not wealthy, and my dad was in the Air Force, but he was not an officer. So we lived in base housing, and we had a Vauxhall Victor for the 4 of us, my mom and dad and my older brother and me. And that was, just as cramped quarters. It would be like the 4 of us trying to get into mom's Volkswagen.
Ugh, yeah. So, let's see. How far have we been going on the 2 hours, 20 minutes? This is another... This is going to be another over an hour one. So,
sorry about that.
I think last episode, because we only did 3 episodes, I got that to like 56 minutes. I was like, ooh I'm proud of myself. So
under an hour.
Yeah. Not going to be the case. I feel like this is just going to... We've sort of set a standard for the Pertwee era now. It's like, we're just going to keep rambling. Especially if you're going to go off on cars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got, 4 more seasons to go through, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did read somewhere that Pertwee had 5 seasons, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
And then Baker has 7.
Yes. I actually, someone said in the War Games reactions, like, if you keep up this whole thing of, going through every episode at the end of that era, God help you when you get to Tom Baker. It's like, that's going to be a very long video. Yeah. So
we may have to do just a separate one.
Get just a separate video.
Not at the end of whatever his last serial is.
Yeah, so... and also, speaking of rambling on, God help us if there's ever World War II and Cars in the same episode. We'll be here all week, so...
Let's try the veal.
Yeah. And honestly, I guess that's a good enough place to cut this one, so... You got anything else to ramble about?
Was that really all of it?
Other than the signals to communicate with the astronauts.
No, other than that, I got nothing.
Yeah, me either. So, next time, only 3 episodes next time, so we will see if it's under an hour. Leave in the comments cars that you can ramble about. Nothing specific, just anything you can write a paragraph about. That's
Speaking of which, back in the 1950s, a car company called the Nash Company, later bought out by American Motors, AMC, and then that would be the people that would be the Jeep Company. They actually made a car, I'm not kidding, called the Nash Rambler.
Interesting. I feel like one of the shows I'm watching, Life on Mars, takes place in the 70s. I bet you'd be commenting on any sort of car in that. So, anywho. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our rambling Doctor Who reactions, there is a playlist on screen, as well as another playlist to all of my rambling modern Doctor Who reactions. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.